So I've seen on my YouTube recently, on the recommended page, there's been quite a lot of videos about Realm of Ruins. People have been playing it, doing a bit of gameplay discussion, talking about what's going on with it. And so I thought I'd play a bit of the beta myself, have a little bit of think about what I think about it, watch those videos again, and then maybe play a bit more, just to get my head around it, because it's quite an interesting game, quite an interesting topic, I think anyway, that I'm going to be discussing today. I found the topic interesting because it's been said a couple of times to me in real life, on my Discord, and in a couple of these videos as well. People have been talking about this game in relation to Dawn of War, which I know they're two completely different games. I find it interesting that the game Dawn of War is being brought up quite often, at least in my circle, when Realms of Ruins being talked about. So I thought it'd just be interesting just to kind of explore that and see where we go with it. I do want to say, though, that before I do get into the main meat of this discussion, that I have played about maybe, like I say, 2 hours then watched some videos, then played maybe another couple of hours just to get my head properly sorted on this topic. We've got two factions on one map, very limited knowledge at the moment, and as far as I could tell, the devs and the people who've made this game have done an absolutely phenomenal job with what they have released so far. So I'm, at the moment, my opinion, solid game, solid gameplay, all that good stuff. So this isn't like a critique on the game at all. It's just asking a very specific question, which is, can Realms of Ruin scratch that Dawn of War 1, Dawn of War 2 itch that a lot of players have been feeling for quite some time? So long-time viewers of the channel will know that I work in like an educational kind of background, and I want to apply education to this kind of discussion. In schools, we use something, it's the unofficial term for it, but we call it a shit sandwich when we're giving back some feedback to students. It's not called that, actually, but, you know, it's what it's colloquially known as. Essentially, you give a good piece of feedback, you give a constructive criticism piece of feedback, and then you give, like, a potential, what might happen in the future if you enact this feedback or whatever. So I'm thinking of doing it in that kind of format, just because, it's kind of what I do, isn't it? It's the day job, reflecting on the evening job. So we'll start with the good points. So let's start with the graphics. I think that graphically this game is, as you could probably tell from looking either left or right, depending on where I've put the gameplay for this video, it's quite a gorgeous looking game, isn't it? The individual models look absolutely stunning. When you put all those individual models in the scenery and in the middle of like a scrap, they're still distinct. They're still quite nice looking. The combat animations are pretty good. The UI is nice and clear. You're never quite confused as to where to look at on the screen. So, straight up from like a visual aspect, it's pretty damn good. In regards to the mechanics, they're also quite tight. I mean, the heroes that you get in the game, they feel quite not compactful? Impactful, that's the word I'm looking for. They go into a fight, slap people around. It's exactly what you want your heroes to do. The units that you actually use, most of them have got their own individual abilities, so they also feel quite impactful when they get involved in a scrap. Especially as well when maybe you've got two different units, and maybe their abilities complement each other, and so it helps you decide which kind of units you want to pair up together when you're spreading across the map and maybe assaulting other people's strategic points, control points, whatever you would call them in this game. The economy is quite simple. It's got your blue money, which you use to spend on most things, and then you've got your red money, which is you buy upgrades with it, you buy more high tier units with it. So that's quite nice and simple, nothing too complicated about that. When the units engage in melee, they kind of like all come together in like a really satisfying kind of scrum. And as well, if you engage someone in melee, they can't really, you can't click them away. Once they're engaged, which I quite like. A lot of times in Dawn of War and Dawn of War 2, when you send in the melee units, everyone runs away, which is fair enough. That's what you would do. If you've got a gun and they've got a big club going to hit you over the head, you'd probably run away. But then, in real life, if you turn around and you're in close combat, they're just going to bonk you on the back of the head. So that makes sense why you wouldn't run away. I mean, they've got a fallback mechanic, which we'll go into a little bit later, but I quite like that. And all your capture points as well. There's like a mechanic where if you, like the longer you sat next to it, the quicker it kind of like expands and the more resources it gives you. So you've got a choice between nabbing all the capture points quite quickly and running forward and capturing more, or whether being a little bit more reserved. So it's a diversity in strategy, which is always nice to see. And also, when you capture your points and build on them, there's like 4 different kinds of points at the moment. There's like a reduce fog of war, there's more resources, there's a healing station, there's a shoot the baddies station. There's loads of different kinds of things that you can build on, which is quite nice. So you're able to decide where and what you want around the battlefield, whether you want to support your troops more, whether you want your strategic points to be a little bit more independent and you don't have to constantly defend them all the time. I quite like that. That's quite nice. The diversity there is quite cool. And the thematics for it as well. I think that, so like I said, we've only seen 2 factions so far. We've seen the Stormcast Eternals, and we've seen the Orcs. I don't know if they're called Orcs, but I'm going to call them Orcs because I know nothing about Aegis Sigma, because I'm a Warhammer 40k guy, and that's just my life. But the Stormcasts, they're, big golden boys and girls. They come on down, they slap people about. They're later tier units. It almost feels like each individual squad is just like a squad full of heroes. They just go around and slap people down. And I mean, they've got a guy on a blooming dragon, or a girl on a dragon. I can't quite remember, but they're quite cool. I haven't played much of them, to be honest, because I'm more of an Orc main in DAO. So I wanted to get my head around them a lot more than the Stormcasts. But it was Stormcasts. They feel good. The Orcs, they've got like lots of supporting hero kind of units. So you get like the massive greenskins and little gobbers and little crossbow people. And then you've got like your heroes. You've got maybe some like drumming people and like a bog or a bog witch, troll witch, a swamp magic lady, whatever you would call them. And they do like loads of little things to beef you up so you can get like a really good war going on, which, yeah, no, it's the thematics, I think. Which, for me personally, the thematics is always the most important thing. Doesn't necessarily matter if the mechanics or the graphics are a little bit clunky, as long as it feels right. That's the main, for my personal opinion anyway, that's what matters the most. I also like how it's, so the way that the UI is set up and the way that the upgrades, we're going back to mechanics here, I should have really mentioned this earlier on, but like with the way that the research works, so you've basically got 3 tabs in the game. You've got one to upgrade your main stronghold place, which is fair enough. You've got a tab for recruiting units, and then you've got a tab for research. And I quite like that. It's simple. The Sigma game, whatever you call it, I can't completely forget what it's called. The Aegis Sigma game is, from what I remember when it first came out, was a very streamlined version of the tabletop version. And I think they've reflected quite well in this game that kind of ethos. Because, I mean, like, in other games, there's like a bajillion million different menus to open, whereas this one, there's about 3. Your recruitment, research, and your stronghold upgrade thing. Oh, and I suppose you've got your capture point upgrade menu, but it's neither here nor there. So it's quite simple. So, like, if you're going in and you don't really want to be thinking too much about all these things, I imagine you can just slip in and play, it's quite good. And because of how the capture points work, and how maybe all the units have their own little individual upgrade paths and abilities, there's like lots of hidden depth in the strategy, which, if you want to find it, it's there for you, and if you don't want to find it, then it's not there, and you can just play around with your friends, and dare I say, maybe have fun, which is that not what we're all here for at the end of the day. But moving on to what I would consider, from the Dawn of War perspective, from a player and a caster perspective, the bad points for this kind of game. So starting off, it mentions when you open the game that there's a rock, paper, scissors kind of armor combat going on, which, again, for the streamlining perspective of it, that's fairly nice. But from a Dawn of War perspective, I mean, in DAO you've got infantry, heavy infantry, commander, vehicle, building, demons, and I think monsters. I can't remember if monsters is part of the vanilla or whether that was added in Unification or Ultimate Apocalypse. For the life of me, I can't remember. But that's a lot to play around with. And even in that armor type, you take an Imperial Guardsman and you take an Orc Slugger Boy. They're both infantry, but like they're like either high or low armor. So there's even within infantry or armor types, there's still a little bit of difference in that. Now, I don't quite know exactly how the armor works in Realms of Ruin, but when you advertise on the front, hey, we've got rock, paper, scissors as our kind of system, it doesn't quite tickle my pickle in a positive kind of way. It makes me think, ooh, that's kind of like a simplified version, which is not quite what I would like as a Dawn of War player. But speaking of that lack of complexity, we can also talk about the unit upgrades. I'll use the scouts from the Space Marines as a example for Dawn of War 1. By the by, most of this will be me talking about Dawn of War 1. Dawn of War 2 people, like, I love you, you're beautiful people. And Dawn of War 3 people, I'm sorry, I have nothing for you. At least I've played Dawn of War 2 quite a lot, and I know a fair bit, and I will be going into Dawn of War 2 a little bit in some of these points, but Dawn of War 3, I'm sorry, you've got nothing from me. But Dawn of War 1, right, so you've got the Space Marines, and you've got the Scouts, right? And they come out, there's 2 men in the squad, and maybe get an armory, and then you've got like a bunch of upgrades for them. You can make them go infiltrated. You can give them snipers for taking out lightly armored targets, morale damage. You can give them plasma guns so that later on they can take on the heavy infantry in a kind of supporting role. You can give them flamers, which is like early game morale harassment, stuff like that. If you wanted to, you could attach a servo skull to them so they can detect infiltrated units. If you have a low health hero and you want to make sure that they're protected a little bit from range fire, you can attach a hero into them. That one squad, as a early capping unit, has so many different choices in different levels of the game, from early right on to the late game, which makes it super interesting considering that when you've got that one unit that could do so many different things, and then you look at the entire Space Marine roster, and they can also do lots of little things as well, it gives the player so many different options, so many different choices, so many different ways of combating an opponent's kind of strategy. Whereas in... and that's not even to mention like sergeants and stuff, and the individual upgrades you can get in the armory, like increase to weapon damage, increase to the sergeants' power weapons and plasma pistols and stuff like that. So like there's also like that additional layer to it. But in Realms of Ruin, from what I've seen for the individual units, they come out and some units have got a couple of upgrades. Like you can either go for one or a different upgrade. I think for the what was it, the stabby dudes or whatever, they have like an upgrade that can, the gobber stabber people, can either upgrade them so that when they kill someone they gain an extra model, or they've got an ability where they throw a grenade, and then they've got other upgrades as well, but like that is their main upgrade. Choose one or the other. Whereas, you know, I mean, Space Marines, they can have the grenades, and they can also have the more men when people die, because they can just reinforce in the field. Like it's yeah, I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me as a DAO player. And I mentioned this as well in the tier list that I did for Unification, that some factions in Unification specifically, and also Tau in Vanilla, how having upgrades that lock off other choices aren't necessarily a bad thing. But what tends to work, I think, is when it's more like you lock off a tech tree. So it's not like, oh, we can either have this or this. It's like, oh, you can either have this stuff or this stuff. And within that stuff, there is different options that you can go for as well. Whereas in Realms of Ruin, it's just, you can either have this or this, and that's it. Which, in my head, I can understand why, because for some units, if you can buy all the upgrades for them, then they're overpowered. That makes sense. But it doesn't feel like that's the reason why they've done it. Or maybe it is the reason why they've done it, but I'm not seeing it because maybe I'm just wrong, which is totally fine, because I'm not perfect. I might look perfect with this amazing old swath of the old facial hair, but even bearded men can be wrong occasionally, and that's fine. But again, keeping on this theme of like a lack of choices, base building. That is quite often a point of contention being brought up by a lot of people who are big on Dawn of War 1. That's the main reason why a lot of those guys don't play Dawn of War 2, because there's just like a lack of base building. And base building is just, I get it, it's not everyone's bag, but it's quite an important component for the people who are into Dawn of War 1. It's kind of like building is kind of create interesting build orders, you know? If all you need to do is build units first and foremost, then yeah, okay, fair enough, you have build orders in the sense that what kind of units you go for, what's your initial unit composition. But if there's buildings, especially when there's like things like plasma generators where you can get like the power generation resource, it forces the player to think, right, okay, not only do I have to think about the units, but I also have to think about the buildings. And not only do I have to think about the buildings, but I also have to think, hey, some people might come over and destroy these buildings. So I've got to make sure that I protect them as well. Which, it's interesting because then, like, you create not only the battlefield, which is the main part of the map, but then your base is also part of the battlefield in the sense that you need to be offensive and defensive. You need to make sure that you're out there capturing points and securing objectives. You also need to make sure that you don't neglect all your resource generation stuff in there. And, like, if you want to, I don't know, say, oh, there's half of a unit roster that you don't actually want to have access to. Maybe vehicles aren't kind of what you're going for in this unit composition. Just don't build the vehicle production building, which kind of makes sense in my brain. And it also kind of, like, diversifies the way that you can attack an opponent. So let's say, for example, you have a situation where you are going up against a person and they've gone quite heavily on vehicles and they just keep on, every time you kill a vehicle, they just build some more. And it's a real pain in the backside. And you don't quite have the units that can take much more in the way of offensive stuff. What you could do is that you could take some units, go around the backside, and then destroy the production buildings. So you can combat the units that you're having problems with without necessarily going for the units themselves, which is... It's just an interesting way of going about things. Again, it just gives you a different avenue to be able to go through and counteract a strategy that you're up against. I think it was... The concept of base building probably has been brought up quite a lot in the past. And I think the most recent mod, Dawn of War 2 Eternal mod, if you look at the comment section for a lot of the videos that have been done on Eternal mod, you see, I've seen a lot of people say this is what Dawn of War 3 should have been like, which was a good hybrid combination of Dawn of War 1 and Dawn of War 2, where you've got the squad-based combat of Dawn of War 2, featured quite a lot, and then you've got like a bit of base building. And there's not... Oh, knocking my microphone everywhere. There's not much base building in Dawn of War 2 Eternal mod. There's not much at all, really, when you compare it to DAO 1. But it doesn't need that much. It doesn't need that much at all. Just a smidgen of base building, and everyone's quite happy with it. So I think, yeah, if we're thinking about it from this perspective, I don't think Realms of Ruin, I don't think that quite gets us in that regard. And I do get that maybe in a certain way that the upgrading of the outposts on those control points might be considered a little bit base buildish. But it's not quite the same, is it? I mean, if... It's just not sexy, if you know what I mean. It's like, oh, well, I can either have this big sprawling base that I've made myself with little building units and I can arrange it however I want, or I can capture a thing and then click a button and then it builds itself. It's... Maybe it's just me personally, it's just not as sexy as what it could be from a Dawn of War perspective. Now, another point I want to make is about momentum. So, in Dawn of War 1, when you're attacking someone, all your units, with the exception of vehicles, which can be repaired in the field by your builder units, all the units can more or less reinforce themselves. Which allows you to, when you're fighting, if some of your units are a little bit low on model numbers, or maybe they're nearly being wiped out, you can pull them back a bit and reinforce them. Or maybe not even pull them back a bit, maybe just keep on sending them in with the hopes that maybe they reinforce just in the nick of time. Which means that when you're attacking, you don't necessarily need to stop. You can just keep on keeping on and seeing how far you can push that initial drive that you're going for. In Dawn of War 2, it's kind of like a little bit different. You know, the game starts off, I would say, quite low momentum, quite relaxed. You know, there's maybe a couple of skirmishes here or there. But in the late game, you get almost this like wave back and forth. You have a big engagement, and then maybe a lot of the units from one side have to fall back. And then they quickly reinforce, and they all come back again. So it's like this breathe in, breathe out kind of momentum where there's calm bits and then there's exciting bits, which, you know, I mean, it's not the same as Dawn of War 1, but it's still appealing. It's still got that exciting kind of momentum feeling going for it. But in the Sigma game, it's interesting. So you've got some units that, playing in a support role, they give like the nearby ally shields. So it kind of like acts as like a quick heal, which keeps people in the field fighting for a little bit longer. You've got some units that, say for example, the orcs have got like a drumming thing that can bring back units, can reinforce them. There's like we say, the outposts, which you can get healings from and stuff. It's just, I don't know, it doesn't quite have that momentum like Dawn of War 1 or Dawn of War 2 has. It's not this constant push and it's okay because we can just pull men out of our backside and we can keep on going. And it's not the quiet, oh dear, I need to fall back, regroup, and then push in. There is a fallback mechanic where if you're in melee, you can spend like some blue money and run back, which is quite similar to Dawn of War 2. But you've got to be in melee. You can't just retreat en masse like you do in Dawn of War 2. And the running is not as quick. It's not. I mean, it doesn't feel to me as quick. You know, it's almost as if in Dawn of War 2 everyone does speed and just jets it all the way back home. But in Sigma, it's I don't know. It's hard to explain without experiencing it yourself, really. But if you've played Dawn of War 1, you've played Dawn of War 2, you probably know what I mean about momentum. It's hard to put into words. It's more of a feeling, more of an emotion, rather than an actual tangible kind of piece of gameplay. And I don't know quite how one would replicate that kind of feeling in this kind of game. Unless, of course, maybe it's just the particular matchup between the Stormcast Eternals and the Orcs. Maybe when there's different factions involved, maybe that kind of momentum is there. It's just not there for these kinds of factions. But hey-ho. And one last thing I want to bring up is the scale, the actual size of the battles that are available. Now, I do believe that one of the main differences, at least from people I've talked to, about Dawn of War 1 and Dawn of War 2 is usually the macro scale that things can get to. In Dawn of War 1, it feels like army versus army. In Dawn of War 2, at least in the early, mid, and maybe early late game, it feels a lot more like a contingency of like a small part of an army going up against another small part of the army. You never get like this fleet of tanks coming forth and smashing up everything. I think that's to do with the squad cap system. Rather than having infantry and vehicle squad caps in Dawn of War 2, it's all one squad cap, whereas in Dawn of War 1 they've got two distinct squad capping kind of things. So in Realms of Ruin, it's still that one flavour of squad cap. It's all units fall under that one thing. And let me put it in perspective, right? So at the beginning of a Dawn of War 2 game, like we've said before, it's a bit of a skirmish. And then as the game goes on, you get more and more units. You get the tanks out, you get the Leman Russes, you get the Manticores, you get the Avatars of Canes, and the blooming big orc tank with the swirly saw thing. It builds, it ramps up gently in scale. And same with Dawn of War 1, except for that, like I say, you get that fleet of tanks, you get the triple warp spiders jumping around everywhere. It's absolute chaos, but that's why it's really good, isn't it? In the Sigma game, it doesn't quite... I mean, don't get me wrong, I've only played on medium difficulty, so I don't know quite how big it gets ramped up if you get two really competent players. But from the unit rosters that are available, you don't quite have the big scene setting. Oh, you know, the guardsmen charge and the manticores are firing over and the terrain is getting destroyed around you and there's bodies everywhere and the momentum you keep on pushing and it feels like a genuine battle. It just feels like you never quite leave the skirmish part of the game. You know, you don't get into that late game army against army, from my perspective, anyway. But like I say, it entirely depends on what kind of scale you're looking for. But in a Dawn of War perspective, I don't think it quite scratches that itch. Neither. So in conclusion, really, if you are a fan of Dawn of War, and you're looking for that Dawn of War replacement, or that Dawn of War kind of feel of a game, I don't think this is it. Like I say, for the reason that I mentioned, there's too many DAO-specific itches that are yet to be scratched by the game at this present moment in time. But as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, as a game on its own, it's got huge potential. I think it's got like a really good base for going forward, and I don't think that... I think if you go in just looking at it as its own unique game, rather than thinking, ooh, this might be a Dawn of War game, or Dawn of War-like game, I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll have a lot of fun with it, all being said and done. Because realistically, Dawn of War players want one thing, don't we? We want the same game that we've always played, but with the modern bells and whistles on it. We want the pathing to be fixed. We want the graphics to be updated. We want more professional voice acting, more professional sound design, all that stuff. Which the Unification boys and the Ultimate Apocalypse boys and Crucible mod people, they're all doing a fantastic job with that anyway. But you know, it'd still be nice just to have this like official, Dawn of War 4, Return of the Dow, and it's going to be amazing. They're just not going to do it. I mean, all it would require is them not reinventing the wheel, but for whatever reason, they're not going to do it. Which makes no sense to me, because if you look at Total War 3 Warhammer, you could essentially re-release Dawn of War 1, 4 original factions, every 2 months, release a new faction, charge people £5 for it, and then what? You've got like, how many factions? I mean, Unification's got about, what, 27 at the moment? 27 times 5? That's like more than £100. So if everyone was really into it and bought all that DLC, that's quite a killing. Why they won't do it, I don't know. It's beyond my ken. But yeah, so it's been a bit of a ramble. I don't do this form of content often because it's not what I do. I cast games and I play games, but talking about games, it's not really my kind of bag. I'm not an essayist yet. So there is that. So yeah, if you liked what was being said here, you might have guessed it, but this channel is more or less a Dawn of War channel. The originals, as well as all the mods. So if that's kind of your bag, please feel free to have a look. We do lots of themed games. We occasionally look at other mods when I have time. We do the occasional Let's Play about non-Dawn of War stuff that some people are interested in. It's all good fun. There's a Discord, there's a Patreon, links in the description as always. But yeah, cheers!